Alright, I've recently done another video, sort of a video user's manual of another Chinese ESR DCR meter, the EZM Electronics Studio ESR-2501C. But I keep seeing this model that's pretty consistently labeled MESR-100. And in many ways I like its form factor better. I don't like the fact that its table is a little truncated and smaller, a little harder to read. I do like the fact that it has plug-in connections on the front, so you don't need to use test leads for certain smaller capacitors. I do like the fact that it just has simple banana jacks, no lead at all to get in the way if you're not using it. And then it comes with this pair of banana plug to alligator clip test leads, and also a sort of a tweezers alligator clip test lead, also with banana plugs on the end. Very short, as you would expect. You don't want to have long lead lengths for things like this. So I'm going to just do a quickie view of this. First off, I'm going to plug in the those going pretty stiff. So those are two-handers to get those to plug in nice and tight. And I've read the instructions on this, and as usual they're sort of Chinglish and not very clearly written, but it doesn't seem like there's that much to it. So I'll push and hold the power button for a couple seconds, and it gives me the range. It's currently an auto range, and it's showing it in current overload mode, and it says that it has an internal ESR table based on 25 volt electrolytic capacitors, and that'll change so you don't have to look things up on the table. But for other voltages of capacitor, you do need to still look at the table. I think they're just assuming that 25 volts is the most common. There's also a battery status indicator up here, and by pushing this mode range button I can change the mode from auto mode. So now it's in manual. It's in the 0 to 1 ohm mode, and it'll stay there. Push it again, it's in the 1 to 10 ohm mode. Once more, the 10 to 100 ohm mode, and then back to 0. Now, I'm kind of curious what it does with zeroing. It seems like that should require the leads to be clipped together, but the manual doesn't mention clipping the leads together. It just mentions pushing the button, although it does kind of suggest that you might want to put a piece of wire between here, but it doesn't mention the test leads. So it's not clear whether you're not supposed to even use the test leads for zeroing, or if you can and they just didn't mention it. So I'm going to go ahead and just clip the two test leads together. Seems like that's the right thing to do. And it's currently showing 0.152 ohms. So I'm going to push the zeroing, and now it's showing 0. So I think that's appropriate. Just for comparison, I'm going to test the same capacitors in the 2501C, starting with the 100 microfarad 70 volt electrolytic taken out of some old equipment, previously tested and it's in okay condition, and it says that's 0.26 ohms or 25 ohms. And this is using 100 kilohertz, and this also uses 100 kilohertz as it says right there. And as expected with a larger electrolytic, the 2000 mic has a 0.06 ESR. Typically larger value, larger capacitance electrolytics will have a lower ESR. And with the 100 microfarad connected to the MESR, it's showing 0.274 ohms, not too terribly far from the 0.25 the other meter showed. And it's saying, assuming a 25 microfarad cap, which it isn't, if the capacitance is less than 330 microfarads, then this is considered good. Let's just take a look at the table. So the closest I can come here is 100 microfarads, 63 volts, and it's saying that the worst case electrolytic capacitor ESR would be 0.3, with a higher number being worse. So it's saying that this is a good capacitor by that chart. And now with the 2000 microfarad 15 volt, it's showing quite a different value from the other one. Let me just wiggle the leads to make sure that all is well, that we're getting a good connection. And I'm not too impressed with that. Let me try it after zeroing. So I've got it re-zeroed. I'm going to push the 0 button. Let it do a re-zero. And then reconnect it to the cap. And it's showing the same kind of reading. 0.156 ohms compared to the 0.06 ohms that the other one showed. And it's saying this is good for a 25 volt electrolytic if the capacitance is less than 470. But let's see what the chart says. So this is a 15 volt. So this would be the column here. And it should be, well, 1000 microfarads is closer. So 0.09 would be the worst case for a capacitor here, and it's larger at 0.156, so it's still saying it's good. As far as I can tell, this product does not test DCR, which is a downside. I do like its form factor better. I like things that, like having the built-in ESR table. But since it's only one voltage, you know, how often can you actually use that? You're going to end up using the table down here most of the time anyway. It'd be nice if they had another button on here where you could cycle through different voltages and then have it tell you. But it seems like it's a workable unit. I'm not sure why the ESR is so substantially different. Just for yucks, I'm checking with my Xtec LCR-200, and it's not showing any capacitance at the moment. Let's see here. It's only giving me a capacitance reading if I stick around like 100 hertz or 120 hertz. If I go above that, it doesn't even give me a capacitance reading. But let's take a look at the ESR. All right, with the Xtec LCR-100, it's reading. Well, it can't read the capacitance reliably at 100 kilohertz, which I've manually put it into. So it's giving me a bogus reading of frequency there. Let me see if I can change it to like 120 hertz. Then it gives me 2.46, let's call it 2.5 millifarads, which is about 2500 microfarads. So it's reading kind of high, and that's usually a danger sign. That's significantly high. And it's showing me an ESR of 0 there because the frequency is too low. So I need to show it up here to 100 kilohertz, and it no longer shows the capacitance anywhere near correct, only 2.78 microfarads, but it's showing an ESR of at 100 kilohertz of 0.08 ohms. So that seems to substantiate what the ESR 2501C was saying at 0.6. So let's go back and look at the MESR-100 again. Same cap, same frequency. Substantially different value. It's several times higher than what the other two meters say. Almost an order of magnitude. It's really strange. I wonder if we can force it to go into a different mode and see if that makes any difference. In the 0 to 1, it's 0.6. Yeah, it's 0.6. That's what it's trying to tell me. Not too thrilled about that. Don't know if I can believe this thing. So I've got the capacitor back on the LCR-200, and I put it in DCR mode, and it's reading a gradually changing number that's way up in the millions of ohms. So at least that's high. The DCR should be very high. Now it's going through different ranges and gradually decreasing. The capacitor's charging and some other things are changing, but at least it's a high value. Let's see what take a look at this guy in DCR mode, and it's showing an acceptable range of resistance. Doesn't say how high, it just says it's higher than the magic number. It'd be nice if this thing read DSR or DCR. It's a lot less useful without it. I have a 150 ohm resistor across the test leads and my oscilloscope hooked onto the same point, and we're in the auto range here, and I'm looking at the waveform. That's well, first off, let's set 0 and make sure this is an AC waveform, and it is. It's not just all above 0. And it's 0.1 volt per division. So it's about 0.1 volt there, peak to peak. The waveform is pretty far from a sine wave, which it says it outputs. Let's take a look at the frequency. So it's 2 divisions from peak to peak at 5 microseconds per division, which is a period of 10 microseconds, and that is, of course, 100 kilohertz. So it's outputting the frequency we expect. It's just not a very good sine wave. Let's try it with a different range. Oh, look at that. A much higher. Let's try that again. In auto, it's 0.1 volt peak to peak. In the manual 0 to 1, it's a substantially higher voltage. And it's a different waveform. Still not a sine wave by any stretch of the imagination. Let's go down here. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 0.6 volts. Peak to peak. And if I go to the 1 to 10, it's 1, 2, 3, 4.43 peak to peak. And if I go to the 10 to 100, it's pretty much the same as it would be in auto. Yeah, same thing as in auto. That was probably because in auto it was picking the 10 to 100 range. The instructions say that for in-circuit testing, this device never produces a voltage high enough to turn on semiconductors, and in the 0 to 1 ohm range it's 0.6, so it's pretty darn close to being able to turn on some semiconductors. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. Now I can try just putting this on a known capacitor and seeing if I get different voltages. I'll do that. Alright, with a brand new 100 microfarad, what is the voltage on this thing? 25 volt, Nichicon electrolytic. I'm getting a real fuzzy pseudo sine wave there at the lower limit of my scope. So it's 2 millivolts per division here. I changed from times 10 to times 1 for a better view. So 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, about 8 millivolts, which is pretty close to the 0.01 volt or 10 millivolts I'd guessed in the lower resolution display. And again, the frequency is about 2 divisions, same time base, so it's still at 100 kilohertz. It's a slightly closer approximation of a sine wave. What happens if I go to the manual 0 to 10? Doesn't change. And if I go to the 0 to 10, it's off the charts. Actually, I can't even read it. Oop, there it is. Once again, I'm at the limit of what I can read on here. It's a tiny little voltage. We're still at 2 millivolts per division. So, yeah, we'll call it 1 millivolt. It gets even smaller, but it's saying error, error, error. I'm not real fond of the way this thing is working. And it's not AC either. The output it's providing here is below ground. There's ground. And it's ground and gradually creeping up. I don't know what would cause that. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this thing. I would not trade this or my Xtec for this at all. I'm seeing a 2 against 1 thing on a lot of things, and it's missing the DCR mode. So I'm actually considering returning this puppy.